So this is cylinder number 6, this is cylinder number 5, and all the rest of them continue to have, like, other ones have like the lines that are dark like this, they may be just maybe even fatter, you know, so it's not consistent. This truck right here, this Ram had an engine rebuilt about a year, 20,000 miles ago. Engine was rebuilt pretty crazy. So this is a 5th gen Cummins, comes with the hydraulic lifters now. And they put them back to the tappets and adjustable valves, and you know, so you can get this, so that way they don't have the failures that the hydraulic lifters have. It's got ARP head studs and, you know, everything YouTube recommends nowadays when you watch a shop and all that. ARP head studs on everything. Although I did see something pretty cool from Gail Banks. That guy's pretty awesome. He talked about how ARP head studs make the head very rigid, which, like, I feel like it's one of those things where high boost and high power, I guess you need that, you know. But also for longevity, Gail Banks talks about how when you have, he's seen a lot of these engines come through with ARP head studs where, because there is no flex, there's no as the heat expands and retracts and all that stuff, there's no flex and all that stuff. So what his take on the ARP head studs is, it makes everything so rigid that, you know, he finds a bunch of cracks. He ends up finding cracks on right at the ARP head stud where the bolt goes. So where you have a regular bolt, those things are gonna flex and they're gonna be, you know. And at the end of the day, I guess if you're using your truck for what it's rated, you probably would never have an issue, right? You can always do things like, you know, put oil coolers. I know I have a transmission oil cooler on my Duramax. That thing's pretty awesome. Like, I know there's a bunch of different things like oil coolers for the pans and this and that, but on my LB7, I put a PPE big fat oil cooler in the front. That thing's like 10 to 15 degrees cooler, like, all the time. Even when I'm towing like around 5,000 pounds or more, it's still around between 6 and 7 degrees cooler than it normally is on upgrades, and it cools down a lot much faster. So I'm not against any upgrades or anything like that, but the only thing that I'm always seeing is people wanting to do stuff to their trucks to make them do things that they were never intended to do in the first place, I guess, right? What I'm saying is, if you're going to go race this truck and do tractor pulls, right, and then you actually have the time and the money and the backing to remove this head and inspect it and check it or whatever, and replace the head when you need to, I guess that there's a place for everything, right? Like, there's a place for all this stuff. But when you want longevity out of an engine, it kind of makes sense, right? So we're going to have a really rigid, non-flexing when it needs to flex. Like, so if it was engineered to do that, it almost seems like that kind of needs to stay there for longevity of the engine. Because, I mean, I guess, like with everything, right? You can make a bunch of power, you can make a bunch of different, you know, your engine do a bunch of different things. But let's face it, like, all those things that we're trying to make our engines do and our transmissions do and all that, you know, racers do, what are they doing after every race? They're taking all that stuff apart. They're rebuilding it, they're checking it, they're replacing heads, they're replacing pistons, they're replacing whatever they need to replace to get it to go, right? So now we have, like, these things that we're installing these things to make our engines do that type of work, but without we're lacking all the maintenance of, you know, all that stuff to be able to check these things after so many passes, or be able to check these things. So I think this right here is pretty awesome on the 5th gens. So we're having issues, and I don't know why on the 5th gens they replaced them to hydraulic lifters. These things have been having tappets for a really long time. I think what happens, just like we were talking about, doing your maintenance, I see a lot of these fall off and all that because they never get in here and do that valve adjustment when they need to do it, and or they take it to do some valve adjustment to somebody and they leave these loose or whatever. Seen that a lot. But this engine right here was rebuilt, and I think this is actually pretty cool. The rocker arms, and so they've replaced the hydraulic rockers, the hydraulic lifters that came on this Gen 5, and put it back to the old style tappet and adjustable rockers. That's actually pretty cool. So on this one right here, there's they're having oil coolant consumption, um, and what happened is, I'm not sure at what point, right? So this engine was rebuilt 20,000 miles ago, and I don't know if it was rebuilt because something happened to it, or I don't know if it was rebuilt because it was like, hey, actually the truck has about 200 some thousand miles on it, so it's a high mile engine for the year, and for the type of truck. But I don't know what it was. If it was one of those things, like kind of what I was talking about, like, hey, I'm gonna just make this thing like, bulletproof. I could just put the best of everything in it in an hour. So now here's the thing, right? I don't know. Maybe all this stuff does work good. You have ARP head studs. You place you put these rockers back to, adjustable rockers, tappets instead of hydraulic lifters. It looks like it had speed of air pistons. It has speed of air pistons in it. And then EGR coolers removed, which is amazing because now you're not recirculating that soot back in through the intake and gumming and plugging all that stuff up. No exhaust in your intake. That's probably just 100% a gain right there. One of those good things that you can do to your engine. But now this thing's consuming a lot of coolant, right? So at some point there was some oil pumps replaced, it seems like. And then it kept on blowing off coolant hoses. So you can see, like, on some of these hoses, they've double clamped them, right? So it's just trying to figure out, like, okay, so what's going on? So after the rebuild, was there an issue with an overheating? And was the overheating caused by, um, the customer? I'm not sure, right? Now, was the overheating caused by certain things that were put in the engine? I'm not sure. But what I did find is, you have gases in the coolant bottle. You do have exhaust gases in there, right? So you can check it with the block tester. That only gets you so far. It just kind of confirms that there's gases in there. So then you go in search of, okay, so the first thing at the diesel shop here we would do is check for, an EGR cooler, um, failure, which would start pumping coolant, into your exhaust, right? But it's not here. This is pretty awesome. They did an EGR delete, EGR cooler delete, right? So since that's not there, and we don't have any external leaks, the only other place it could be is injector cups or head gasket, right? So we took all the injectors out, pressurized the system, looked at the cups. The cups weren't leaking. There's nothing coming out from around the injector cups. But then, so we put this little camera. I have this little camera. This thing's pretty awesome. It's already helped me diagnose a multiple of Cummins, actually. This thing's pretty cool. It's a little camera with the end kind of flips, right? So what I end up doing is I take the injectors out, and I'll put this down through the injector tip hole, and then I do that, so that way I can see what's going on up at the valves, right? So I'll kind of do that right there. And what I found was, a lot of these that's when I found that this thing has speed of air pistons, those little pistons that look like a golf ball. And so what I found was that there was some coolant in there, found right at the where the head gasket seals, that firing that the head gasket seals, to the block. There's a couple pistons. So number 6, number 5, they have coolant. So this one came in with green coolant. So it looked like there is green coolant coming out of, like, right at those seams right there. And then we also have a lot of vertical lines, which it looks like. So when we do a rebuild here, we just did an international Max Force 10. Um, when we do those here, um, you know, you always check, you put your piston rings in there and all that, and you run the piston up and down. And the one thing you got to check for is make sure you don't have any lines and any oil lines that are vertical straight, because usually that means a broken piston ring, or maybe the piston ring gap is not correct, or something like that. So you know, kind of go in search of. All right, here's what I'm talking about. So here's those speed of air pistons. They're actually pretty cool looking. Whether they work or not, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. So here's one of the piston. Here's one of the cylinders right here. So you can see these lines, these vertical lines right here. And on some of these, like, so you have like one line that's like thin like that or whatever. You're kind of like, okay, maybe it's just the whatever the piston ring gap. Maybe there's a little gap there, whatever it is. But when you have multiple ones like this, that's usually concern, because like look, if you look at this like these cylinder walls, man, it's got beautiful cross hatching. Like you can tell this was just done, you know. Um, so here's the one that we let sit with pressure. Like, so the pressure, we put that thing we pressurize the system, the cooling system, and we'd leave it for about 15 hours at a time, because we don't have an immediate drop in pressure right away. But there's, you know, but after about 2 days, we can see, you know, in the cylinder, we have a good accumulation right here. And then this right here, I know you usually have, I call it the flower, the injector fuel flower. So like on these pistons, you'll have wherever the injector sprays, usually it's washing, like pressure washing right there, you know. So it creates like these patterns. But the only thing with that is we don't have like we don't have those patterns. And so see what I'm seeing here right off the bat. Let me try to start this again. Like right off the bat, we have, okay, so I know it's a little bit hard to see right here. Or we can actually check it. So here's the thing. So here's here's a line right here where the piston will come up. Okay, so here's another line right here. Right, so here is the line. So the piston still comes up, but just a little bit higher. But the ring will come up, and this is as far as the ring goes right here, right? So what happens is, I see right here, this is where this is the head, this is a valve, this is one of the seats right here, so this is a valve right there, so you kind of have context. So this right here, this is where the head gasket goes. See, this is a green coolant right there that's kind of been leaking down. Well, what's crazy is on this, I think because of the coolant, we've been getting like an accumulation, a little bit more accumulation of this soot or carbon here. But so if this is where the ring ends, see how we have a couple little jagged edges right here? Mm-hmm. So to me, it seems like the piston is like maybe getting a little sideways or a little wonky. And then here, right here, you see this discoloration, like where you see all this crosshatch right here. There's been a good amount of wear right in between here, right? So we have that discoloration right here. There's some spots right here, like these darker spots, right? So it kind of seems like those pistons have been kind of going a little wonky. So if you see it right here on this video, this is kind of like those jagged edges I'm telling you. So this is a little bit of a buildup, but there's like, you can kind of see, right, how they've been kind of hitting.
Those wear marks?
Yeah. And it's like ever so slightly too. It's not like it's grinding into. But see, this engine also has one during the diagnostics. This engine also has like it sounds either like to me it sounds like a fuel knock, which it could be because of the coolant introduced into the cylinders. That it's not atomizing the fuel correctly, so we might have an engine fuel knock. But also, it could sound like a piston skirt a skirt slap too, you know. So I don't know. Maybe that could be if the piston's kind of like vibrating back and forth in there. I'm not sure. You know, so this is where we're at, and I know it's hard to see, but so if this is the highest, this is this piston ring is going right, and it makes a very perfect round all the way around the cylinder. If you see in this area over here, it's kind of rubbed off some of that soot even higher on this area over here. I know you can't see it because of all this right here, but you see how this is a perfect line. There's even a line right there, and then it's gone because it's been kind of rubbing into that area over there. So I'll play the video. So there's the valves and coolant leaking. So you can tell like this is where the head gasket's at, and then it's leaking all pretty much through there, and then it stops right here. So that's my camera going kind of back and forth. And here's another thing that kind of looks a little weird too. Oh, that's the other, that's the side I was kind of actually trying to show you. When I turned it around 180, oh, at the very end right there. Yeah. At the very end, this is what I was talking about. So you have that. Now I turned the camera back the other way. So this is a valve right here. This is where the head gasket would seal in this area right here. But this is that piston ring line that it creates, where it's rubbing against the cylinder with oil and all that. But this is where the piston coming up higher, the piston head coming up higher than that top ring. This is what I was trying to show you. It's like getting into the cylinder, you know, at that point. So I don't know if that's what happened. Maybe that happened when it was really overheated, and maybe the piston kind of swole up a little bit or whatever. But even now, you start it and kind of run it and under medium to high acceleration, you have this like, you know, you let go of the accelerator and it's gone. So to me, it sounds kind of like a slap, but like it's something slapping in there. So even if we were to do like a head gasket on this thing or right there, like you know, that would maybe fix the leak, you know, granted making sure that the deck is nice and straight and the block is straight and the head's straight and all that. But see this right here, that's definitely where it should all look like this. The cross hatching, that's like pretty much completely gone right there in this area right here. Like, would I personally put ARP head studs on my rebuild? No, you know, like it's I don't know, but I'm not, my truck is not going to be used for way more than it's rated for, you know, or probably won't even, if at that point I need to do that, then I guess I need to adjust what my toys are or what my hauling capabilities are, you know. And see, the reason why I switched to that 2500 LB7 is because I had a 1500 Chevy gas truck. And once the first time I pulled a trailer with that, I'm like, yeah, I can do it. And I did, right? But I'm like, how long can I keep this up before me and my family are stranded, you know, with the gas truck in the middle of the desert? So that's why, you know, and therefore that's why I have an LB7, because definitely not going to get something with DPF and DEF and having to do all that, right? But
so what's the next step on this one?
So on this one right here, we're going to do we contacted the customer that brought it to us, and just let them know, like, look, this right here is not sure what they want to do with it. I know this engine was rebuilt, so it could have the shop that rebuilt it could have completely nothing wrong to do with this, right? We don't know how the customer ran it. We don't know what the tolerances were. But this right here, I don't know that the customer can cause this right here. The only thing that I could see would cause it would maybe be the piston got really hot and it swelled, because it's not just one cylinder that's doing it. It's like that. Like if you look at all the cylinders in that engine, they all have vertical lines like this.
Every
And-
single one.
Yeah, every single one of them has vertical lines like this. And so look, this is one of them where you have a segment of like a barcode right here, and then you have a skip, and then you start over here. This one right here, like you can tell, it's like pretty wide. So this is cylinder number 6. This is cylinder number 5, and all the rest of them continue to have like other ones have like the lines that are dark like this. They may be just maybe even fatter, you know. So it's not consistent. You know what? I don't know much about them, you know, to do them personally. This is something that I've seen not too long ago. I know shops are using them on YouTube and all that. But you know, at the same time, that's what they do, and I guess you know companies will want to try out their products or whatever. But me as a consumer, like I'm not getting speed of air pistons because they're claiming that they're good, right? The dynos show that they're good. But at the same time, it's like how long have they been out there? You know, I kind of want to know from other people. You know, where are they worth it? Or is the hype worth it? Right? Like I'm not sure.